Okay, we're going to do a bee quiz today. We're going to talk about honeybees, and we're going to talk about pollination, how that relates to our food supply. So, ready for your quiz? You can answer by holding up your fingers 1, 2, or 3, whatever you think the answer is. All right. So, what is pollination? Is it the collection of nectar from a flower? Is it a country in Africa? Or is it the transfer of pollen from one flower to another? 1, 2, or 3? Answer is number 3. It's a transfer of pollen. So our worker bee has hairs all over her body that collect those pollen grains when she visits a flower. When she flies on to visit her next flower, she's going to take that pollen with her, and that's what's going to fertilize that bloom and allow it to grow a nut, a seed, a fruit, or something that we can eat. So the bees provide a very valuable service to the flower by helping them reproduce. So why do the bees pollinate flowers? Because they're hungry? Because they're prettier to collect food for their hive? What do you think? Answer is number 3, to collect food for their hive. Now, in order for a flower to be pollinated, it has to attract that insect, and it does it by providing a reward. So in this case, the reward for the bees is going to be the food they take back to their hive. So they collect the pollen, and she packs it on the back of her leg, their pollen basket, and they take it back to the hive because they're going to need that pollen to feed the young bees as they're growing. Very high in protein, has vitamins and minerals, what they need for the young bees' nutrition. And then they're also going to collect the nectar, which they make into the honey. That's the carbohydrate in their diet, and then the pollen provides the protein. So what crop in the United States relies the most on honeybees for pollination? Almonds, alfalfa, or grapes? The answer is number 1, almonds. Very important for the honeybees and for the growers. We take our bees to California, and the almond trees are just getting ready to bloom this week. It's called the largest pollination event on the planet, and all these bees come from all over the United States. We truck them out there so they can pollinate these trees. They usually have 3 varieties of almond trees in an orchard. The bee's job is to cross-pollinate those varieties, transfer that pollen from flower to flower, so these trees can then produce nuts. Without the bees there to do that job, almonds would not produce any nuts. So that's the important job that honeybees do for the production of almonds. So how much of the food we eat is produced from plants pollinated by insects? None of our food, 1/3 of our food, or all of our food? Answer is number 2, 1/3 of our food, all dependent on insects. About $14 billion is the value of all these crops you see in our basket here. These are all crops that either benefit from honeybees pollination or else need the pollination. Now, they also help with the quality of food too, because if you have an apple blossom that is well pollinated by the bees, you're going to have a very beautiful apple, nicely shaped, very large. If they're not adequately pollinated, then you're going to have a misshapen apple. So bees really help with the quality of the food as well as increasing the production. So what do honeybees collect from the flowers to make honey? Nectar, pollen, or beeswax? Answer is number 1, nectar. Clear liquid. Their tongues are actually little straws. They suck that nectar into their special honey stomach, take it back to the hive. While they're flying, the enzymes in their body change the nectar into honey. And then they also have to get rid of some of that moisture that's in that nectar because it's kind of watery, and they fan their wings and they make that honey nice and thick. So once they cap that cell, ripen the honey, cap the cell with wax, and honey will keep forever. It never does spoil. So that's how they make the honey from the nectar in the flower. So why does honey vary in color and taste? Is it the area of the country where it's produced? Is it the bees that produce the honey, or is it the flowers they collect the nectar from? Answer is number 3. It's all about the flowers. So we have a lot of varieties. We have clover honey produced in North Dakota, which is very light, mild flavor, but we also have dark honey like buckwheat, very strong flavored, all dependent on where those bees collect that nectar. So we have cranberry honey, raspberry honey, even avocado honey. In each one of these tastes very different. There's about 200 varieties of honey in the United States, all very different tasting. So how much of the honey would a worker bee make in her lifetime? 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey, 1 teaspoon, or 1 cup? 1/12 of a teaspoon is the answer. That's about 1 tiny drop that each worker bee makes in her whole life. So how long do they live? What's the average lifespan of an adult worker bee? 2 days, 45 days, or about 5 years? How long do they live? Answer is about 45 days. They actually die of exhaustion. They fly to and from so many flowers that they wear their wings out, so they don't even live through a whole summer. So they have a very short life, but the thing is they need a lot of bees, about 900 to make 1 jar, 1 pound of honey. So if a hive makes 100 to 300 pounds of honey, you can imagine the numbers of bees it must take. A hive will have about 80,000 bees in a hive during the summer. So you can come over and look at our bees. Our queen is marked with a blue spot on her back. Okay, you found our queen over there? Good job. Good job. Okay. This is honey. Now the bees during the summer, they will store that honey in the hive, and that's what they'll eat through the winter, because of course they can't make anything more in the winter, so that's what they have to do, is store it to eat later. They have to make sure that we leave enough honey in the hive for the bees through the winter, about 100 pounds. Yes.
This honey looks good.
Ooh, it's very good.